Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Explore the National Science Foundation's SBIR STTR program. I'm Rebecca Todd, your moderator this morning, and I work as Innovation Specialist for the Arkansas Small Business and Technology Development Center. We are taxpayer funded to provide confidential one-on-one consulting, training, and market research services for entrepreneurs and established companies across the state. We've been working in Arkansas for over 40 years now, and we have 12 offices throughout the state that allow us to help entrepreneurs and established companies. Most of our regions have at least one university-based center. Through our center's competitively awarded federal and state technology grants, the ASBTDC is able to offer continued outreach through events like this webinar, where we have information shared about the SBIR STTR program for statewide and national audiences. We help entrepreneurs with every step of preparing and submitting small business innovation research and small business technology transfer proposal applications, as well as state level ones for supplemental technology commercialization funds. To date, our clients have won 80 SBIR and STTR awards across the participating agencies, including National Science Foundation. Through our industry database subscriptions, we can help our clients locate market data to help them prepare key sections of their proposals, like the commercialization plan. So everyone that's registered for today's webinar will be receiving a copy of the slides as well as a link to the recording within 2 days via GoToWebinar email. Before we kick off, let's take a moment to make sure that everyone's ready and familiar with this program. So first, you should see that you have a control panel on the right side of your screen. You can minimize this panel by clicking on that orange arrow button in the upper left corner. And you can expand the panel by clicking on that same button. So take a moment to practice this. And second, you have the ability to submit questions using the question pane that's located near the bottom of the control panel. And I do encourage everyone to submit questions throughout today's presentation. We'll have time at the end for our speaker to respond to those. So that moves right into our introduction. And I would like to go ahead and introduce today's speaker, Henry Ahn. Henry joined the National Science Foundation in July 2016 as an SBIR STTR program director. Prior to joining the National Science Foundation, Henry managed seed and early stage investment programs for TEDCO for 12 years, including Technology Commercialization Fund, TEDCO's flagship seed funding program for technology-based companies in Maryland. During his time at TEDCO, Henry was actively involved with various entrepreneurs and entrepreneur support groups, where he served as a guest speaker, an advisory board member, a judge, a mentor, among other roles. Additionally, Henry was part of the licensing supplier relations team at a biotechnology company called Upstate. This is where he successfully negotiated, licensed, and commercialized approximately 190 biomedical research reagents from around the world. Henry has also done approximately 5 years of research, mostly in the field of immunology, including graduate work. Henry has an MBA from Rice University, Master's of Science in Biotechnology from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and a Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Engineering from Boston University. So with that, I'll now turn the presentation over to Henry. Take it away, Henry.
All right, thank you very much. Again, my name is Henry Ahn. I'm one of the program directors here at NSF. I handle the biomedical technologies topic within our program. So that covers the diagnostics, medical imaging, as well as monitoring devices and others that are related to biomedical technologies. Move on to the next slide. So NSF is primarily a funding agency. So as most of you probably know, that we receive money, and there is very little to fund research and education and other related activities. And there is no internal research within NSF. Our annual budget is approximately $8.5 billion. And we evaluate roughly 43,000 proposals every year. That includes about 12,000 awards that are made. And we fund approximately 2,000 institutions. And this is mostly academic institutions, but that number does include approximately 400 for-profit companies that we fund under the SBIR STTR program. So we do fund a lot of different people with our grants, 307,000 roughly on an annual basis. And it includes $1.4 billion in STEM education. And I guess this is a number that I guess NSF is very proud of. We've supported approximately 248 Nobel Prize winners over the years. The SBIR-STTR program is the only program within NSF where we work exclusively with for-profit companies. And as you probably know, this SBIR-STTR program is a federally mandated program. So approximately, I guess in aggregate, about 3.5% of our extramural R&D budget will come to this SBIR and STTR funding annually. So if NSF budget goes up, then the SBIR and STTR budget will go up proportionally as well. In FY 2020, we had our budget was approximately $221 million. For phase one, for companies that are applying to NSF for the first time, the companies will pretty much have to go through phase one first. The amount actually has gone up recently as of this year. Companies can apply up to $275,000 for phase one. Those companies that apply for phase one and complete the phase one project can then move on to apply for phase two project, and that can be up to $1 million. There are supplements that go along with phase two awards, and phase 2B is the biggest of all the supplements that we have, but that's not the only supplement that we have. We have other supplements that go up to about 20% of the phase two award, but phase 2B is the biggest of all the supplements that we have. And again, there is no such thing as direct to phase two or phase 1/phase 2 accelerated program with NSF. Everyone pretty much has to go through phase one first, and then phase two, and then all the supplements to go along with it. So to be eligible for SBIR-STTR, people just these have to be just for-profit companies, fewer than 500 employees. That's the federal definition of a small business concern. And located in the US, companies have to be at least 51% owned and controlled by US individuals, which means US citizens or permanent residents. Although the eligibility requirement may call for companies that are as big as almost 500 employees, NSF's focus has been on the early stage, and we fund companies that are just relatively new. 95% of our companies have 10 or fewer employees, 81% founded in the past 5 years, and 59% are first-time SBIR-STTR winners. So that doesn't mean that if you received SBIR either through NSF or other agencies, that you would not be eligible to apply for SBIR to NSF. You would certainly meet the eligibility criteria, but just keep in mind that those companies that have been in business for a while, maybe they have won some SBIR awards in the past or raised some significant amount of money. Those companies generally have to provide some additional information within the full proposal that explains about the company's financial status, why this phase one funding will be significant for the company going forward. Again, there is no internal research within NSF, and our goal is to help companies to de-risk the technology early on. So most of the companies that are applying, they haven't been around that long, and unlike other agencies, we don't have a topic that we specifically focus on. Our focus is to help de-risk technologies early on so that we can somehow bridge that gap between friends and family round and moving on to maybe raising some private investment. So this data shows where the money went, and this is the FY 2020 data. And a total of $190 million in awards were made, and including those phase two supplements came out to be roughly $221 million. One thing to I guess keep in mind as you look at this chart, it's not really meant to be a breakdown of percent goal that we have to fund technologies. So where you see 28% of life sciences, it just happened that year that we received just many more life science proposals. And when we went through the full process of reviewing and eventually funding these projects, it just happened that 28% of those companies fell into the life sciences category. But we do cover every topic, and we even have this other topic, 3%, for companies that really can't be categorized in any way. The important thing with NSF is that the technology that the company is working on has to be innovative. There has to be commercial potential with the technology. And with that, there is a fit somewhere within one of these topics. And we have a total of now, I guess we're up to 12 program directors within our NSF SBIR STTR program. And each of us handles different topics so that companies know exactly where to go and who to interact with, who to ask questions, and where to submit the application. This is our homepage within SBIR STTR, within the NSF website, seedfund.nsf.gov. If you're thinking about submitting a proposal to NSF, this is probably the page that you should visit first. And it does have a lot of information related to our program. If you look at the top, you'll see a tab that says resources that has a lot of different information for not only the applicants, but for our phase 1 and phase 2 grantees, as well as our reviewers, who will be able to review the review criteria that we use for those reviewers who are joining us for the first time. And how it works on the upper right-hand corner, that gives step-by-step guideline on what to do when coming to NSF for funding. And I will go through some of these things first, these steps as we go through these slides. So the first step in the process is to submit a project pitch. Again, if you go to that link on the upper right-hand corner and click on that link, you see the drop-down menu. One of them will say submit a project pitch. And although the link is provided here, you can easily get to that link by following through that website. The project pitch is just for us to know what the company may be working on. So it really is not an extensive information that extensive, and it's not meant to be used for evaluation purposes. We just want to know whether there is a fit. So companies typically have to tell us a little bit about the technology and the company, what the innovation might be, who the intended initial target market might be, and what the company may be proposing to do as part of the phase 1 project. And this is a process where we will not only review, but we'll also see whether the project pitch was submitted under the proper topic. Sometimes I receive a proposal that that is very kind of digital health like type of technology with AI and machine learning involved for diagnosing certain things, and it's submitted under my topic under biomedical technologies. And when I review it, I'll get back to connect with the program director that does digital health and let him know that this came in and I'm transferring it over to him. So there is some internal shuffling going on as well. So for companies that are looking to apply, you can just submit it under the topic that you believe is the best fit. And beyond that, don't worry about it. We'll take it from there. And if needed, we'll move it around internally. You'll hear back within 3 weeks with either an invite, if it's a good fit. And if it's not a good fit, you will not receive an invitation, but you'll know exactly why you were not invited to submit a full proposal. And within that email, you'll know which topic that you need to submit your full proposal. As well as the program director that you will have to contact if you have any specific questions along the way. And at this point, the project pitch process, and one other thing is you don't even have to have a company formed at this stage. You could be just thinking about it at this point. Maybe you're in the process of registering your company or thinking about the name of your company. Project pitch really is not where, again, things get evaluated. So when I receive a proposal, one of the things that we don't do at NSF, we don't fund clinical trials. So if I see a project pitch that is proposing to do clinical trials, then I can just get back to the company and say it's not a good fit. and tell them exactly why. So it's exactly for that purpose. And I think most of the companies, especially under my topic, under biomedical technologies, innovation is usually very clear, and the target market is generally clear. And most of the companies will receive an invitation to submit a full proposal. Otherwise, sometimes I will pick up the phone and call people to clarify certain things before I move it to an invite. So this is just a point where we initiate this conversation. So if anything, you don't have to worry about emailing us separately and saying, hey, where do I submit this? Just go ahead and submit your project pitch, and we'll take it from there, and you'll hear from us within 3 weeks. These are the review criteria that we use within our SBIR-STTR program. Intellectual merit, that has to do with the technical aspect of the proposal. Is the technology innovative? Is the team technically technically experienced, or do they have enough expertise to get the work done? Is the proposed project appropriate for $275,000 project? Anything that has to do with the technical side. Broader impacts has to do with the societal benefit within the US, or increasing economic competitiveness within the US. In some ways, I think those things do follow when a company is able to survive and continue to grow. So, but I think those are the impacts that we also look at. And these two criteria are identical throughout NSF. Whether somebody's applying under an academic grant or through this SBIR-STTR program. Now, this commercial potential is unique to our SBIR-STTR program. Actually, years ago, we had these two criteria, the broader impact and commercial potential, kind of combined together. So companies really didn't have to separate them out or think differently, because as I said earlier, in some ways, a successful company will be able to make those impacts. And those are kind of, those happen along the way with a company being able to grow a business successfully. But to be in line with the rest of NSF, we have separated those two criteria. So we now have this broader impact and commercial potential, which has to do with anything that has to do with the commercial side. Does the company understand the initial target market, the market potential for that initial target market? Do they understand the competitive advantage? Do they understand how to protect the intellectual property, maybe regulatory path to market if they have to worry about the regulatory path to market? Do they have a team? Well, at this point, early on, more likely than not, the team may not be complete, but at least if the team's not complete yet, people on the advisory board that they can refer to and say, hey, these are the people that have commercial expertise. They'll provide us with guidance along the way until we're able to bring somebody on board full time. Those things tend to strengthen applicants as they go through the whole review process. The review process generally takes us about roughly 6 months. The first 3 months are used to undergo merit reviews. Most of these proposals are reviewed under a panel of reviewers. And after the panel, there may be some additional follow-up clarification that we may ask, but our goal is to pretty much get to the final decision on funding within 4 to 6 months from the time of full proposal submission. And if all goes well, our hope is that companies will be able to start the project within about 6 months of submitting the full proposal. This 6-month guideline, although we do our best to get through the review process as quickly as we can, sometimes things do get delayed a little bit. Sometimes things do move a lot quicker than this. So this is just an estimate so that companies, when they submit their proposal, they can plan accordingly. But based on how things go, the plan may have to be shifted by about a month or two, or one way or the other. So what do we fund? We fund novel, innovative, proprietary technologies. And these are mainly for feasibility and viability of the product, of the new product. So if a company is coming in and planning to diagnose something, if the project gives them the ability to maybe take some beautiful pictures or some gather clinical samples and process them better. I guess if the ultimate goal is for this company to be a diagnostic company, there has to be something that shows that the company can diagnose something. So the proposal should really help them to get to that point of being able to show that, hey, we have generated some supporting data that shows that we can do what we say we can do. And those will be important as companies think about the research and development work. And these are all high technical risk and early development, and people refer to it as high risk, high reward. And when I mentioned this with another group a while back, somebody asked, well, what exactly does that mean? And well, at this stage, I think when companies are going through this process, there's probably going to be very little third-party investors interested enough to provide funding. It's considered just too risky. There isn't enough data or support that says, hey, this can really make me money for investors. So our hope is that at this stage, it's high risk because no one will invest in it. It's too early. And our hope is that our money will be able to help companies to de-risk this technology so that they can generate the data that may be needed and ultimately may have some big impact within either the society or within the particular field. And so since these are for-profit companies, they have to be working on technologies, preferably what people refer to as game-changing technology. But I think that term is kind of easier said than done. But whatever the technology might be, this should really be sufficient for the company to be able to maintain and sustain a for-profit company. If it's only got a few $1 million market potential, maybe that's not sufficient for a for-profit company. Maybe more appropriate as a nonprofit. But here we're not VCs, so we're not looking for 10x, 5x, 10x return on this type of grant. But companies really have to be able to show that they can advance it enough and ultimately get to a point of being able to sustain a for-profit company. And I think when a company goes through things like I-Corps, those of you who are not familiar with I-Corps, that's a kind of customer discovery exercise. So being able to explore and interview and understand the customers, interview the potential customers and understand the market need and demand. This generally helps companies to make a stronger case that this technology that the company is working on has a potential market fit and has a way to address the specific need that the market demands. So what do we not fund? We don't do basic research. Primary goal of adding knowledge in the field. Several years ago, there was if you remember, there was a picture of this black hole that was published. For the first time ever, people were able to actually see in a picture that this black hole, and this was a big deal around NSF because most of that work was funded through our research grant, academic research grant. So that's great. It's adding knowledge to the field, and it's a very important innovation and work. But unfortunately, within our SBIR-STTR program, that's considered basic research. So it doesn't really have commercial application, at least at the moment. So those are not the type of work that we will fund. Incremental improvement to an existing product. If a company has developed certain device for one application and they want to use it for another application, maybe addressing another disease, maybe the de-risking of the technology at this point is kind of already done, and it's just considered an incremental improvement to what they have. So those are the type of work that may be considered less compelling as an SBIR or STTR application. And projects where there is no commercial potential or success to go along with it. These are for-profit companies, so they have to be able to grow and generate some meaningful revenue. And just about all the money that we provide has to go toward technical work. So any non-technical work like market research or regulatory prep to preparing documents and working with a regulatory consultant to get it through that path to get it to market. Now, those are the type of work that will not be funded through NSF SBIR. Just about all the money, again, has to go toward technical work. These are some of the important elements over the years. These are the things that do come up quite a bit with the review panel, and evidence that the technology works. We do come in early. These are companies that are just getting started, but I guess one thing that we want to be careful about is we don't want to be seen as gambling with taxpayers' money. So if a company's coming in and saying, hey, this is going to do A, B, and C, and there's really absolutely no evidence based on a theory or other people's work that it has the potential to work, then that's probably going to be a little too early. Supporting data is not a requirement for SBIR, but some form of supporting evidence would be important. Understanding of the initial target market need and commercialization strategy is also very important for NSF, even for phase 1 applicants. When a company is working on a platform that can address a lot of different, that has a lot of different applications, sometimes companies will come in and say, hey, we can do all these things and make a huge impact. But that may be the case, but the company really has to think about which application it'll have the most impact. And this is where things like ICOR or customer discovery interviews can really come in handy. By interviewing all these people, maybe the company will have a better understanding as to which market it'll be the most compelling or meet the demand that the customers are looking for, and then maybe expand to those other applications down the road. But having that initial target market being focused is very important. Intellectual property, especially for companies that are under my topic, under biomedical technologies, intellectual property protection and the strength of that IP is going to be very important. It'll give companies that long-term sustainable competitive advantage. If a company comes in and says, hey, we will discover something and file a patent sometime during the project, maybe at this point it may be a little too early because there should be something there that the company believes can be protected and understand how the company will be able to continue to compete going forward. Significant competitive advantage is important. Regulatory path to market, and for companies that are in this particular, specifically within a biomedical field, team. At the time that companies apply for phase 1, again, the team, it's not unusual to see just 1 or 2 people running the company, but having advisory board to fill that gap that the team may have is going to help companies to look stronger, or at least it'll assure our reviewers that perhaps receiving this guidance will help the company to minimize mistakes along the way as they try to get to that next significant point. We all know that companies will make mistakes, but as you know, the amount of money that we provide is not a lot, although up to $2 million can be significant. For most of the companies that are under my topic, it's not going to be enough to get to the revenue stage. So companies have to think about how they're going to use this money effectively, and I think having advisors to provide guidance on the business side and on the regulatory side, it's going to help companies understand some of the things that they have to be involved with now, with the current technical work to help address perhaps the most significant critical milestones. And then that's going to help them perhaps to raise some additional funding to continue to grow the business and work on all the other things that may be needed to commercialize the technology. Advance that the demand exists is important. Again, those customer discovery interviews can be very helpful there. If a company is resubmitting the proposal, a 1-page resubmission summary that talks about the weaknesses that the company saw within the panel summary would also help strengthen the proposal. And these are some of the things that I saw over the years. I mean, these things tend to happen. These questions happen to come up, or things that I've seen or heard over the years. So I thought I'd put this kind of together, and it may be helpful, may not be as helpful, but but here they are. So I'm often asked if we have a sample proposal. Unfortunately, we don't have a sample proposal. These are all confidential documents, and for us to be able to offer it as a sample, we'll probably have to get together with the company, make sure to redact all the confidential information from the document. I mean, that can be really a big task. And once that's done, I mean, our solicitation guideline may be tweaked along the way, and certain parts may no longer be applicable. So for that reason, I don't think that's very, I mean, I guess, meaningful. I guess in some ways it might give the general format, it might be good, but it's just too much work, and the proposal that we provide as a sample may go out of date relatively quickly. So instead, I think the best thing to do is to follow the solicitation guideline very carefully. We do provide a lot of details there. That's probably the next best thing to a sample proposal. We've also seen companies that talk about a provisional patent that they filed, several years ago, and don't really talk about what happened since. There has to be some follow-up to this. If it was a provisional patent application, and when a company says they'll file a patent application during the phase 1 project, hoping to discover something, some people question whether this is basic research as opposed to translational research. And some companies do talk about I-Core interviews and just simply indicate that they confirm the need. But if you can talk a little more about this I-Core interview, if you interviewed just 10 people, that's going to be very different from interviewing 100 different people. So just being able to discuss that finding a little bit more in depth might give you, or at least give our reviewers, some additional details around this and understand the depth of the interviews that you've done and the need that you've found through these interviews. Milestones, we see companies just simply listing milestones, what they hope to do. But I think, I see this more often these days than before. Many of our reviewers are asking, well, how do we know if the company has successfully completed these projects? So some form of success criteria with each of these milestones will also be helpful. And if a company gets declined, I think it's very important that the company just circles back with us. The decline email will have the program director that processed the proposal. So if you can just reach out to that program director and have a debriefing call, I think this is going to be helpful in terms of, if you're thinking about submitting a proposal again for consideration, I think that's probably a must. It's going to help you, and it'll never hurt you in any way to have this type of meeting. And hopefully that discussion will help you to prepare a stronger proposal and be successful with the next submission. And one other thing is when a company gets declined, applicants will receive everything back in individual reviews, verbatim, minus the identity of the reviewer, as well as the panel summary that the panel as a group put together. So our hope is that these feedback will be helpful to the applicants in some way, even if they decide not to come back and submit another proposal. Hopefully they'll be helpful. So go through those reviews carefully, and if you're thinking about coming back and submitting your proposal again, please do circle back with us. And if you have any questions, please contact the program director in charge of that topic. And we do these type of things a lot, the outreach events, and we do provide this general information about our SBIR STTR program. So we can all answer probably all the general information that's related to this program, but anything that's specific to the topic, there may be certain things that may be very, in a way, different depending on the topic. So it's always better to talk to the program director in charge of that topic. So for example, for just about all the companies under my topic, under biomedical technologies, if the company does not have any type of patents or have filed patent protection for a certain aspect of the intellectual property, it's generally seen as a significant weakness. And I can't really think of many proposals that received serious consideration without having anything that's protectable. But on the other hand, if you're a software company under IT, it may be a little different. So depending on what the technology might be, I think sometimes it's better to have your questions addressed specifically by the program director in charge of that topic. And our contact information is listed on our website too, so feel free to reach out anytime as you look into our program and if you have more questions along the way. All right, so these are all the slides that I've prepared, and I guess I'm ready to take questions. My screen just disappeared. I don't know if I stopped sharing, but I'll try to get the screen back. In the meantime, I'm ready for questions.
Thanks so much, Henry. This is great information. I appreciate you taking the time to share the details about how NSF responds to these type of proposals and best practices for new applicants. Let's see, one question that came up when you were showing the different topics. One of them that used to be there that's not there anymore is education technologies. Do you have any insight as to why that topic was removed or merged with others?
Yeah, so I think the initial thought was education technologies could kind of easily fit into, to various topics. And for a while, I think they were turned into a subtopic. So some of the education technologies went under robotics, for example, under IT, and depending on what the company may be trying to do. So they were kind of absorbed into various subtopics of kind of bigger topic. But I believe we have brought it back, and the technology, I believe, is back. I mean, the topic. Let me go back to our website here and see. I believe. Yeah, so I think we don't call it, I guess we don't call it education technologies specifically, but there is a topic called learning and cognition technologies, human-computer interaction and augmented and virtual reality, and I think those can kind of fit into those categories. And we also have, under Peter Etherton, we have things like advanced analytics, artificial intelligence, and I think some of the education-related technologies can fit under there too. But education technologies is still very much, it's very important within NSF, and we do fund many education technologies, but you may not see specific much larger topic called education technologies. But I think learning and cognition technology is probably something that comes the closest to what we used to call education technologies, because that's very broad.
Right. I thank you.
Let me, in the meantime, I don't know what screen I'm sharing here. Hold on one second.
Oh, it just looks like your desktop. You can.
Oh, sorry. You have to
stop
be looking
showing
at all of the tests. Hold on one second.
Nothing too alarming, just your icon.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, I don't have anything proprietary there.
There should be a button you can stop showing. Yeah, there you go. Well, no.
Did I stop sharing? Yep.
No, it's still showing. Sorry, your webcam went away, but your desktop is. I could actually pull up my. I have some slides for folks that we still have a couple questions, but I'll show my screen that.
Yeah, sorry. I guess I'm not used to this GoToWebinar. I'm more used to Zoom and Teams.
It looks like it worked through that time. You should be good now.
Okay, am I not sharing my screen anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. All right, let's go through more questions.
See, we have another one that asked, when you had the slide about, it was something about things that you hear with the review panels, and one of them was the patent application will be filed in phase 1, that makes the NSF question whether or not this is basic research. Could you explain a little bit more about why that's the case?
Yes, I think there has to be something clear. I think, and most of the time when a company submits a proposal, they have some good idea as to what their intellectual property might be, and having some understanding of what aspect of the intellectual property may be protectable, having done some prior art search maybe, I think it kind of gives additional confidence that the company will be able to work on this technology and be able to compete going forward. If a company works on the technology, say, work on the milestone and to build this little device to maybe collect samples, and then find that someone else owns the patent, that they can't protect anything, then it's probably kind of money wasted. So I think having some good sense as to what aspect might be protectable, maybe after having done some prior art search or having a discussion with a patent attorney of some sort. I think that gives our reviewers some additional confidence that this company really may have something that's truly novel and may be able to develop and be able to raise money with it. And then one other thing is, for most of the companies that apply for phase 2, it's definitely not unusual for these companies to be talking to investors or strategic partners, or sometimes they come in after having raised some significant amount of money. Those are, definitely not unusual. It doesn't mean that it's required that companies come in with those things for phase 2, but it's definitely not unusual. But if the company doesn't have a good understanding of what's protected, or have taken the steps to protect it, and filing a provisional patent application really doesn't mean anything. So we don't really look at it in any way other than saying yes, the company has something that they believe is important enough to file something, but having understanding of what aspect may be patentable, that's going to be even better. And so that's, in some ways, just giving our reviewers additional confidence that that the company is just working on something that's truly innovative and novel, that the company may be able to protect and be able to compete in the long run.
Great, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Henry.
Sure.
Another question asked, in phase 1, if a company resubmits, is the award success rate higher for resubmissions than just people that haven't resubmitted?
Yep. Yeah. So one second. So can I go back to the patent question real quick? And yeah, and if a company is not going to protect the IP, and maybe it's just some special know-how, some trade secret that really is going to enable the company to be able to compete and come out ahead. And if that is the case, that should be explained within the full proposal. So again, patent is not a requirement, but it tends to be the case under my topic, and it's definitely not unusual under software IT type of proposals. And in terms of companies that are resubmitting, I think what I tell companies is that when a proposal gets declined and they know exactly why, with all the comments, and if they address all the concerns that are found within the panel summary, and the individual reviewers, they have their own comments too. And if a company submits a proposal again after addressing all those concerns, it is definitely guaranteed to be a stronger proposal than the previous submission, but it's a different review process with reviewers looking at this. And so there's still no guarantee that the proposal will be funded. There may be some questions based on maybe new information that was submitted, or maybe even old information that other reviewers did not see in the past. And those may be discussed and brought up, but so although there's no guarantee that it'll be funded, it is guaranteed to be a stronger submission. I don't have a separate kind of statistics on whether they have higher chance of getting funded, but it is guaranteed to be a stronger submission. But we've also one thing that kind of frustrates me a lot is that sometimes a company gets declined. There is no debriefing call. They never reach out to me, but they just decide to go ahead and submit a proposal again for consideration. And when we look at the new submission, they really didn't do much to address any of the concerns. And in some ways, it kind of feels like maybe they were hoping that a little bit of added details here and there, that the new set of reviewers will see the proposal differently and be funded. So I think we do have companies that are taking that approach, and most likely than not, if they were funded and the review panel had some really significant concerns, that's not going to get a company from not fundable to fundable. So we've seen that as well, and so that may kind of skew the result a little bit. We have definitely have a lot of companies that are getting funded the first time, but also coming back for the second time, sometimes even third time before they're funded.
Great, thank you. And when you said there's a different review process for resubmissions, could you explain how that is different?
I mean, it's not a different review process. It's actually the exact same review process, but it's a different set of reviewers than the first time. So when a proposal gets declined and when a company decides to address those concerns, update the full proposal and submit it, it doesn't go back to the previous reviewers that reviewed the proposal. It's just with the new panel. Within the same panel, we may have some companies that are coming back for the second time or submitted for the first time. So that whole review process itself is pretty much the same. But one thing that may be a little different about companies that are submitting for the second or third time, on the cover page, they will be checking off and saying that they've submitted their proposal before and they're submitting again with significant revisions. So with that, with those check marks on the cover page, our reviewers know that the company has gone through the process before. And sometimes our reviewers will just go directly to the back because they're supposed to prepare this one-page response to all the weaknesses from the previous submission. And they try to look for this one-pager to see if the company really did address those concerns or not. And if a company doesn't have it, then our reviewers might say, hey, they don't have it. And if they see something within the full proposal, they don't know whether this is because the company didn't address from the previous concern, or if it's something that's different, that's new. So I think for that reason, the companies that are submitting for the second and third time, the process that a company takes may be slightly different because they do have to prepare that one pager. But other than that, everything else is pretty much the same.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yep.
So our next question asks, if we are interested in participating as a panel member, how does this work? What are the professional requirements?
So professional requirements. So could you repeat that question again, please?
Yes. So if someone's interested in being a panel member on a review panel,
yep,
how does that work, and what are the professional requirements to be a reviewer?
Yeah, so I guess we don't really have a specific professional requirement per se, but I mean, these have to be people that are experienced in some way, whether understand the technology or understand the business side of it. So if you are interested, please email me. You can just email me at hahn@nsf.gov along with your CV or resume, and let me know that you're interested in reviewing for us and your background. Well, your CV will have it, but a list of topics perhaps that you might be interested in reviewing. What I'll do with that is, once I receive it, depending on the topics that you're interested in, I can circulate to the other program directors in charge of those topics. And as we put together our panels, we'll reach out to you to see if you're available to review. And I think there is, really nothing specific that a person must have. You don't have to be a PhD to be a reviewer, but at the same time, you have to have enough experience in the field, whether running small startups or developing certain technologies, to understand and be able to make an assessment and provide meaningful feedback.
Okay, great. So it sounds like they just need to reach out to a program director.
Yep. Just you can email me, or you can also email the SBIR general email, sbir@nsf.gov, and whoever receives it at that end will probably circulate to other program directors.
Okay. And you have these panels at least 3 times a year, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much throughout the year. This year we have 3 submission windows this year, so I think it'll probably be roughly in 3 groups, in 3 groups. But yeah, we have panels throughout the year.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
Our next question asks, if there was one area of the proposal that reviewers emphasized the most, what would it be? This would be phase 1, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think the following the solicitation guideline carefully will be very important, and I think I would say there is really nothing, 1 or 2 specific things that are considered very important. And I did mention, I think, I don't know how many bullet points I had, 7 or 8 different things that I went through when I went through my slides, and I think those things tend to get discussed a little more often. But sometimes things come up after we go through the review process that's not really related to anything that we've seen. Sometimes it has to do with the company structure and the ownership of IP, and maybe another entity has ownership of the IP and the company really can't license it, or so I think sometimes things will come up depending on a specific case, but I think going through the solicitation guideline carefully, that's going to be very important. We do look at the technical side a lot for phase 1, just like any other agency, but the business side is also very important for phase 1, which may not be as emphasized with other agencies.
Thank you. What distinguishes the best proposals from the others? Next question.
Yeah, and I guess in a way that is kind of similar to the previous question. But when you go through the solicitation guideline, one thing that I mean, I guess I can't really say something specific that'll distinguish it over the other, but when a company talks about the market, the company has a clear understanding of the market need, the specific target market they're focused, and technical milestones that talk about exactly what the company is going to do, how they're going to go about completing those things, and success criteria to go along with it. Maybe some risk analysis to go along with it, some potential pitfalls, and how maybe some plan B to go in case something doesn't work out. And I think all those things kind of tend to come together. And sometimes I've seen proposals where their different sections are prepared by different people, and you can tell the style of writing is different, and even the timeline may be different. One section may say, hey, we're going to try to raise our seed money by the end of this year. Another section might say by the end of next year. So make sure that whoever prepares the proposal, I mean, you read through the whole thing, make sure that they kind of flow nicely together, and they do clearly outline the company's approach. If a company says, and so everything kind of has to, whatever the company says really has to make sense, not just throwing things out there. When a company talks about regulatory path to market, I've seen companies write like a whole page about a different regulatory path to market, more of a kind of educational, paper of some sort about different paths to market. And our reviewers understand what those different paths are, so they're not understanding. I mean, they're not looking for ways to understand the path. They want to know what your specific path might be. So instead of explaining all these things, you will talk about the specific case for your your technology, 510K class 2, here's the predicate. So all those details really have to make sense. If a company says, they're going to find a commercial partner or try to license it to another company, and they haven't talked to anybody to see if anybody's interested. It will be good if the company says, hey, this is our plan, we're going to find a partner, we've talked to a number of different companies, and based on our discussion, they want to see some animal studies, some mouse work. So here's what we're proposing to do, and that's going to help us get to the point where we can have some meaningful discussion with these potential partners. But those, they kind of flow nicely. Sometimes a company will say, we're going to look for a commercial partner to license it to, but they have a price model, and their expected revenue may be based on the number of units sold as opposed to licensing fee. They don't really flow together. So that's when people start to question, well, does the company really have a plan? Have they really thought this through? So I think having someone to read over would also be important. Actually, that's one other thing that will probably be important too. Sometimes entrepreneurs are involved with this project day in, day out, and they've been doing this for so many years maybe, that they see one or two words and they pretty much see everything. They know exactly what the next page will say. But when our reviewers read this and try to provide some form of assessment, they may not have the same ability to see everything all at once. So sometimes it does help for a company to kind of step back and say, hey, give it to somebody who's not involved with the company, that you trust, and say, hey, can you read this? And does it make sense? Is there something that's not clear that I need to provide additional details? I think those things tend to help companies. And sometimes I have these debriefing calls, and some companies come back and they're very upset. They can't believe that the reviewers didn't understand certain aspect. That's something it's very specific for that particular market. And when I look at the page, no matter who it is, other than this company, anybody other than maybe the people within the company, it'll be very difficult to provide an assessment with the type of detail. So, so I think that's also helpful in some way, just being able to provide, receive some feedback from people that may not be connected to the company day in, day out. And I think it also helps to talk to other companies that may have gone through the process, and especially the ones that were able to successfully secure phase 1 through NSF. Rebecca, I don't know, within your network, I'm sure you have companies that have gone through our process and received funding. So maybe being able to talk to some of these people, their experience, it's going to, I think, provide some additional insights as to what they might be able to do to strengthen their proposal.
It's wonderful, thank you,
Yep.
Henry. And just a reminder to those in attendance, your local Small Business and Technology Development Center be a great resource to help with reviewing your proposal drafts. That's what I do here at the Arkansas Small Business and Technology Development Center. So definitely engage us, and as Henry suggested, any awardees that they might even be willing to share parts of their proposals, but just talking with them about how they planned it out to lay it on paper, I think that's also a valuable use of time to have that kind of conversation too.
Yeah, and I do this quite a bit with some of the companies that get declined, and sometimes companies don't quite. I mean, I guess in some ways they're overwhelmed. We do provide a lot of information. We try to limit that in some way, but still, it's government. We have a lot of work on our website and solicitation guideline, and they don't know exactly how to prepare a strong proposal. And I tell them to just go, seek some help and talk to the people at small business technology development centers near you, or incubators, or some form of entrepreneur support network. And I think those things definitely do matter, make a difference.
Just one question I had is, so if a company receives very different reviews from all the different members of a panel, someone really liked it, some of them didn't think it was a very strong proposal. If they talk to someone like you, that's the program director, can you give insight as to why there is such a a clash among the team when you were in the conversation?
Yes, I definitely do reach out. I mean, we run these panels, so we're part of our discussion. So, and I don't know if you, so I have these notes here like this. I have each one for each panel. Take notes with every panel, and so I think perhaps we might be able to provide some additional insights when that happens. When a panel isn't, I mean, when a proposal comes in, and if all the reviewers say it's a great proposal, or if it's a really bad proposal, I think those are easier proposals to discuss, and perhaps a little quicker in terms of going through the full discussion, because everyone's in agreement. And but sometimes we do have proposals that that are, you know, one review, even some proposal we've seen where one reviewer will rate it a poor, another an excellent, two extremes, and the third reviewer saying it's a good proposal, right in the middle. And those type of proposals, I think we tend to spend more time talking about all the weaknesses and strengths and why one reviewer liked it better than others. And that's where the panel summary becomes important, because the panel summary is the work of the group as a whole. So the panel summary, when you look at all the strengths and weaknesses, you're not going to see any points that are, you know, considered a weakness or conflicting points of view. They're just summary that list all the significant strengths and weaknesses. And we have reviewers with different backgrounds. So some reviewers are considered technical reviewers with a lot of engineering background. Some reviewers are more of a commercial reviewer on with more experience on the commercial side. So sometimes those tend to provide some additional kind of conflicting opinions. Sometimes we have a reviewer that really liked the proposal because of the potential. Maybe they went through a certain condition relatively recently, or have a family member they went through the process, and the reviewer believes that even though there are some significant concerns, this is a really important problem, and if it works, it can help a lot of different people, including someone like the reviewer or the family member of the reviewer. And those reviewers, the reviewers that can kind of relate to that specific problem, they tend to, I think, rate the proposal maybe a little higher. So I guess there are a lot of different reasons why, you know, reviewers rate things differently. But please do circle back with us if it's especially if it's a decline. Then our discussion hopefully will be able to help you to get to some meaningful discussion and help you to strengthen for your next submission. And another thing is, in some cases, it's not even those type of things. You know, we've had a proposal not long ago that, you know, this was clearly an established, financially stable company. They've already gone through Series A financing, brought in over $10 million from private investors, and the company is well on its way to developing the technology. And, you know, as you know, one of the criteria that we have, will this SBIR funding serve as a catalyst to help the company to grow into a successful for-profit entity. So that's not the case. When a reviewer sees this, some reviewers will say, hey, this money really should not go to a company like this, because it's not going to serve as a catalyst for that company. It should go to another company that really needs the money to have that chance to get to that point. So and that reviewer just rated a really low, gave it a really low rating because of that fact. And another reviewer, you know, seeing that the company has raised a significant amount of money, but also sees that the technology is innovative and potentially transformative, and really like the technology and what the technology is proposing to do for the intended customers. So, you know, that reviewer may rate it as a really high, give it a very high rating. So there are definitely a lot of different ways that that the conversations go, and in some cases, those may result in ratings that are kind of all over the place. But but if it's a decline, it's always good to just circle back with us so that we can have a discussion with you and see how you might be able to address that.
Thank you. That's good advice. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Next question asks, what advice would you give a team that's in the middle of preparing a proposal?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Other than just working, going through the solicitation guideline, and if any specific questions, reaching out to us. I guess other than that, I don't know exactly what else to say. We can't really review any submission material. So if you're wondering whether some specific section that you've prepared will be sufficiently detailed, we won't be able to provide those type of details. But if you have some specific questions as you prepare the proposal, sometimes you get emails from companies asking about the biosketch that they're trying to include, and not knowing exactly where to include or what form. Those type of questions, you can always just reach out to us. Anything specific, but other than that, I guess just go through. So using the solicitation guideline, make sure that you have enough details. And one good way to look at it is, whoever is reviewing this, just keep in mind that people that review the proposal, they have to have enough details to be able to provide assessment. If it just sounds good, but there is no assessment that can be made, then chances are it's not going to come out of that review panel with positive ratings. And we've had some proposals where it has a whole bunch of what the reviewers refer to as kind of marketing pitch. what they will be able to do. There's nothing supported, maybe no references, and maybe the most significant reference that the company referred to is maybe 10 years old. Those things kind of tend to backfire. So anytime that a company is able to provide sufficient details for us to make an assessment, and just stepping back to see whether those details are there for such an assessment, I think that'll help you to prepare a strong one.
Wonderful. Thanks again for that.
Sure.
So, and you mentioned before that you can't propose a clinical trial for a National Science Foundation, but if a proposal does involve people, but not a clinical trial, is it sufficient to mention a plan to secure IRB approval?
Yeah, and you should definitely mention it in the proposal. If a proposal is in strong consideration for funding, probably towards the end of the review process, we will come back to you and ask you to submit an IRB approval letter. So we can't send out any award notice without an IRB approval letter. So a plan to have that in place should be there, and we know it costs money, so you don't really have to have it. I know some companies already do have this approval letter handy, but I think many of our applicants don't have it in place at the time that they submit a proposal. But acknowledging that it's needed would be important, because reviewers want to know that the company understands what it needs to do. And if your proposal is in strong consideration for funding, we'll come back to you, and at that time you can get that approval letter and send us the approval letter for us to upload to our system, because we can't send out any award notice without it.
Perfect. Thank you, Henry.
Yep.
See, I don't see any other questions at the moment.
Right.
So I want to just quickly switch to make myself the presenter to share a few things with everyone, and then we will wrap up here.
All right.
Hopefully you can see my screen.
Yep. Yeah, looks good. See it.
Okay. So I wanted to give a quick plug for an accelerator program that the Arkansas Small Business and Technology Development Center is participating in that will kick off later this month. This is the National Science Foundation SBIR STTR Proposal Lab. It's the first time we're participating with other states and their resources to offer a multi-region program. We've all won funding through the Federal and State Technology Program of the Small Business Administration. So we have similar mindset for how to assist our clients in our respective states. But this is a way for us to kind of join forces and share tools and resources for companies that are new to this program that want to have a better chance of success in winning phase 1 funding from the National Science Foundation. It's free, as all of our services are. It's just a 4-week program, and we'll be meeting twice a week for a couple hours at a time. So this will be a good way to kind of an intensive curriculum-based approach, after which you'll continue working with me if you're in Arkansas and in the other states if you're based there, to get one-on-one assistance with finalizing your draft sections and getting those sent out to the agency online. So if you're interested, there's more information about this on our website, but if you just do a /proposal-lab, as you can see in the URL, you can get straight to this page and the application as well. So hopefully you'll shoot us an application if you're interested. We have extended the deadline to March 15th for this, so definitely check it out. And if you're based in a different state, I would just reach out to the main contact information there, and they can direct you towards where you can find the application. We also are going to send out an evaluation for this webinar. So just tell us what you thought, what you'd like to see in the future. I know that it's always valuable to hear directly from the agencies about the nuances of their programs and how to be successful. So please let us know what you thought and how we can offer more valuable programming in the future. If you are based in Arkansas and just want more information in general about the SBIR STTR program and get some more insight as to about how we can help you with your proposal, whether or not you want to be in the accelerator, please reach out to me. Again, my name is Rebecca Todd, and you can reach me at this email address here. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. You can also see what we're up to going to our website or visiting us on social media, Facebook or Twitter. We're also on LinkedIn. So I just want to thank Henry again. This was a great presentation, wonderful information about the National Science Foundation's SBIR STTR program, and hope to see lots of applications coming, especially from Arkansas, in the near future.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and look forward to seeing you at the next event. Thanks, Henry.